3, possibly 4 weeks ago, I heard an advertisement on your radio station from a company called Grid Solar. I would love to have that phone number so I can reach out to them with reference to solar panels being installed on my property.
Our listeners are aware and engaged, but more than that, they are loyal. When they hear empowering messages that uplift their community and help them live better lives, they respond. No medium reaches this coveted Black audience like KBLA Talk 1580. So, hit us up today at smb@kbla1580.com and let us help you connect with our loyal listeners. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black under the bud.
KBLA Talk 1580, taking you to Minnesota right now. Yes, indeed, one of my favorite anti-hater anthems. But I'm excited to meet a new person right now. He's the editor-in-chief of Minnesota's the Minnesota Reformer. Previously, he was a Capitol reporter for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune for 5 years after a Knight-Wallace fellowship at the University of Michigan, and some time at the Las Vegas Sun, Seattle Times, and a few other stops along the way. But he lives now in St. Paul with his wife and 2 young children. J. Patrick Coolican, welcome.
Good to be here.
So this must be a busy time for you, right? Your state is in the spotlight, and did this whole kind of wave take you by surprise, or did you see it coming?
I think everybody's been a little gobsmacked by the series of events the past 6 weeks. And certainly I was surprised that Vice President Harris didn't go with Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania because she needs to win that state so badly. But at the same time, I also knew that Governor Walz was really expanding his national footprint in the past 18 months or so. I wrote a story about a little more than a year ago about those efforts, and it was
I
kind of
read
under the
that
radar.
story. It was fascinating. I wasn't aware of that. It's like it was an orchestrated campaign on his part to raise his profile.
Exactly. He was doing these, state Democratic dinners around the country. He was getting to know national reporters a little bit here and there. He became the chair of the Democratic Governors Association. He was raising money for other candidates. And, I think the thinking was it was a way to sell Minnesota. It was a way to help Joe Biden at the time, help other Democrats. And then, hey, who knows what's going to happen? And sure enough, it happened.
Well, as they say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. But so you're not saying that he was prescient and thought, oh, maybe the vice presidency will open up, or that he was gunning for a particular position. He was just positioning himself to level up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in his second term as governor. He's not at retirement age by any means. He's 60 years old, and I think it was kind of a question of like, well, what's next? And let's at least be ready for whatever might come. And I think they're probably thinking maybe a cabinet position would be appropriate. But as I said at the bottom of that article, Joe Biden is 81 years old. And, if there's a health event or who knows what could happen, and then Vice President Kamala Harris, maybe she needs some Midwestern white guy. And sure enough,
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, that was a pretty good call right there. But I mean, I also saw a meme on Instagram, one of my favorite haunts, which points out that if the governor of Minnesota did 2 terms as vice president under Kamala Harris, he could serve for 2 terms as president and still be younger than Trump or Biden are now.
True. Although I had seen reporting in the national press that Vice President Harris liked that in the interview with Walz, he did not express a desire to be president. I mean, I honestly don't know how. I think every politician operating at a certain level
wants to be president, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think 535 people in Congress all think they'd make a better president than the current one, and every legislator I've ever met thought they could be a better governor.
Right.
But still, I think that he is. He's got the football background. He's a team guy, and I think he probably presented himself as somebody who's going to run through a wall for her and not be thinking about his own political future because that's worked out well for him in the past.
I mean, and here's the thing. You're right. Maybe everybody in Congress wants to be president, but there's a difference between, hey, maybe I should run for president, and it's your lifelong ambition like Joe Biden, and you'll try 1,000 times until you finally get to the White House.
Yeah, I think one thing that's one of the most compelling things about Walz for voters, and it's been a real help to him, is that he had this life before politics. I mean, he was just a teacher and a coach, and I think you can imagine some counter history where that's is his whole life, and it just so happened that he got kind of animated by the 2004 presidential election and ran for Congress. But I mean, he was in his early 40s. He was not, as you say, he was not one of these guys who'd been at it his whole life.
And you think that plays well with voters there in Minnesota?
I think it definitely has. I mean, that was the advantage he had. It's been an advantage for him is that he's had this profile as a regular person, and it's not fake; it's authentic, because that's who he was for the better part of his adult life until he runs for Congress in 2006.
I mean, I think when we're dealing with issues like inflation, you do want someone who knows what it's like to go to the grocery store, and have to cough up whatever the price of bread, eggs, milk, or whatever is. That's kind of reassuring in some kind of way, right?
Yeah, I mean, he would be one of the least. I mean, the guy's not going hungry, but he's one of the
Okay.
least affluent politicians.
Right. He doesn't own any
certainly
stock,
at the national
reportedly.
level.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, he doesn't own any property. They sold the house, which was in walking distance to the high school, a few years after he became governor, because there's a governor's mansion here. So yeah, I mean, he was accused by one of his 2022 opponents of being quote unquote homeless, which I think was like
Because he's living in the governor's
property.
mansion. Right.
Yeah, and he doesn't own property, which I think that also just speaks to the kind of tone deafness of the opposition sometimes. And it's like, a lot of people don't own property. That doesn't mean they're homeless.
Right. You can be a renter and be in public office. We have several here in Los Angeles. Well, lucky then that
Sure.
he's leveling up, if he wins, to a job that also comes with a home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So as far as Minnesota goes, I mean, as reporters or journalists, we see things like you said, okay, you said you don't think that everyman vibe is fake. We see things that other people maybe don't because we're covering people over a period of years. You see them when the mic is off in unguarded moments. You see them, you cover them talking out of both sides of their neck many times with politicians, saying this to that crowd and that to the other crowd. What's your sense of what we, what the behind the scenes maybe part of Governor Walz is, if you've observed any?
Well, I certainly think that that Gwen Walz, his wife, is an important person to know about. I don't think there's a Tim Walz politician without Gwen Walz. She's an educator in her own right, but clearly a close advisor, and has often been actually pretty deeply involved in decision making. So I think that's certainly something to know. He like many politicians, he can be sloppy with his words. He's already been kind of caught up in that with it. And in one instance, when he was talking about gun control, and he used the phrase "weapons of war," that I took to war. I mean, he wasn't in a war zone. I never got the impression that he went around saying he had combat experience. That was just, I've never heard him say that.
So you don't think he's chronically lying about that, right? You don't think he's chronically lying and saying, "Oh, I was at war with weapons."
No,
you think it was a turn of phrase that went south?
Exactly, yeah, and he's guilty of that. And I think if you ask people, especially people close to the political system here, they would say that as well. And he's his term here has been it's his second term. It's been a lot of, especially the first term was a lot of crisis, and so
i.e. coronavirus. Is that what you mean, or you're talking about crisis specific to your state?
Well, the aftermath of the George Floyd murder,
of course,
and there's a lot of scrutiny about whether or not he acted decisively enough in the days after, when there was a lot of arson and rioting. That's for the voters to decide. But in 2022, when in his reelection, the people of Minnesota, I think, made the determination that it was a difficult, complex situation, and people were doing the best they could under difficult circumstances, and he was reelected.
I mean, it's very interesting, because when I talk to activists in the movement for Black Lives Matter space, they say that's the man who called the National Guard on protesters. When I hear the conversation on this radio station recently with Keith Ellison, Attorney General at that time, he says, well, he did his due diligence. He met Governor Walz met with many organizations and talked to them, and he was thoughtful about the way he moved forward with the National Guard. When I hear the MAGA New Confederate people, they're saying he took too long. He hesitated. He let Minnesota burn. And so, three different views on one particular reaction. Where would you place it?
Well, again, very complicated, because, of course, ultimately it should have been the city's responsibility to gain order, and as much as I understand people rejecting the militarization of the city, it was also the case that a lot of people in the city, including people of color, including people in North Minneapolis and parts of South Minneapolis, were wanting some order, because it just felt like it was out of control, and there was a lot of fears that white supremacists were responsible for at least some of the arson. So it's a very complex. It was a complex situation, and I think in retrospect, maybe he would have come in a day earlier than he did and taken over sooner. But everybody can, it's easy to say that now. And interestingly, we have this a story on our site going up relatively shortly here about this being really the toughest issue for him, that public safety, because on the one hand, he felt the need to rein in police brutality, while on the same time, because of the pandemic, we had a significant crime spike here, and people felt like their neighborhood was no longer safe in some cases. So it was a very challenging policy and political issue for him.
Well, I appreciate your sharing. There's so much to cover, and it sounds like I want to take a little bit of time before we run out of time today to talk about your publication, because it's really an interesting, kind of organization, the Minnesota Reformer. We're talking with J. Patrick Coolican, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears, thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust new Febreze car vent clips, now with 3 times greater scent control, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And I do appreciate you being here. You're welcome into the conversation, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580, as we learn a little bit more about the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats ahead of next week's convention. We're talking with the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer, J. Patrick Coolican. Explain to me how the Minnesota Reformer works. It's part of a non-profit news organization?
Yeah, we're a non-profit, independent, and we believe that Minnesota's delivered a great quality of life to a lot of people, but not everybody. And that's why kind of where we got started in January 2020 was to report on news and offer commentary about some of those inequities and how we make that Minnesota dream available for everyone.
It's interesting, just thinking about the idea of nonprofit news. It's not something you hear much about on the left or the right, or the center. What are the advantages of that? And do you think we would benefit as voters and American public from more nonprofit news?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the coolest space right now in media, and it's growing rapidly. We're part of a national nonprofit called States Newsroom. We were the 12th state to be funded and founded, and now we're up to 39 states. And the idea is that because of the internet and Craigslist and everything else, local and regional media is struggling, and we're losing a lot of important journalism around politics and policy, especially at the state and local level, which is where most of the decisions are being made that affect the most people, like how much are your taxes going to be, or how much money is going to go to your school or to mass transit or what have you. And so, we've been lucky. We've got philanthropists who've decided we really need this to have an informed citizenry. But ProPublica is these great investigative reporters. That's their nonprofit. And then you're seeing it also at the more local, the city hall level. So I think it's an exciting place to be. I love not having to worry about advertisers.
Clicks.
We're free. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I want us to write compelling stuff that people are going to read, but I also am not worried about, chasing the latest fiery car crash or something. And again, also that we can do this stuff and it's free for people, no paywall. And they don't have to look at bad advertising when they look at our stories, that we don't have any advertising.
Okay, this is crazy. I've checked out Cal Matters, which is out of Sacramento. Didn't realize it was part of a national nonprofit, but they certainly have some great stories that I like to read. So I guess I didn't know what I was tapping into.
Yeah, we have a partnership with them, I believe, but we're in 39 states. I don't think we don't have an actual outlet in California, but we do have a partnership with them.
I see. So, there's all these struggles right now about the role of the internet, as you pointed out. Think about Canada trying to take on Facebook around news, and then Facebook just stopped carrying their news. A similar situation happened in France. I really feel like the big tech platforms should be, paying into a kitty. I actually think all print and my bosses will probably kill me, but I think all print and broadcast media should. Maybe something small, almost like a BMI or an ASCAP, because everybody uses print journalist work. Everybody does it. I've worked in television newsrooms. I've worked on radio. I've worked on talk shows in the mainstream media for Disney and others, and they are all reading the LA Times, the New York Times. All of the print journalists, the investigative reporting, and they are using that as their own assignment desk to create their stories and features. And I think we should all be acknowledging that so that we don't see the death of print in this country.
Wow, you're speaking my language here. Thank you for acknowledging that. And I mean, I think we need good fact-based journalism for our democracy. And so, and if there's not a great profit model like there used to be, which is just the monopoly, there was one newspaper in every town.
Right.
If that's collapsed, so we ought to think as a society about how we're going to support it, and maybe that means some kind of a revenue stream out of government. I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable with that just because I also cover government, and I don't like the appearance of that. But it happens in other countries. And it's done. It's okay, but there's other potential models. But for now, we're having to rely on philanthropy, and I will say it is a vibrant space.
I love that. I love that for America. And that's why I say ASCAP and BMI. Every time a radio station plays a song, they, it's just maybe a couple pennies, but they add up. That way the folks that are using the material would be helping to pay for the journalists that make the material. But I digress. I think just a really, really important conversation, though, because this, in the age of disinformation and misinformation, and we have to have sources that we trust, and we have to be able to understand how to tell the difference.
Right, and if you think about what Facebook and Twitter have done to our society, it does seem like they owe at least a little obligation to fix it in the other direction, potentially, as you say, with revenue that would help restore that fact-based reporting.
Right, which of course they are also posting and using. So if we want to find out more, we can go to statesnewsroom.com, and I'm sure you're, what is your, I probably have it here, but what is your,
We're MinnesotaReformer.com.
MinnesotaReformer.com. I think these things are good to know about. Tell a friend, because you're getting information that's not dictated by profits. So Tim Walz and J.D. Vance are going to be debating on CBS on October 1st. They've both signed off on said debate, and I'm sure it will be very widely watched, because for many of us who are not from Minnesota, Tim Walz comes from out of nowhere. What do you expect? What do you look forward to? What do you predict?
I've seen him perform poorly in debates, to be honest.
Really?
And I think he told the Harris team that he said, "I'm not a great debater," but I also think that he's going to throw himself into the prep. He is certainly a good communicator. He's a good public speaker. He spent a lot of time in the classroom as a geography teacher, and I think he was one of those kind of charismatic teachers who could just talk all class and keep the students interested. But it's a very different environment when you're going up against a Yale educated lawyer. So I think he's gonna have to do some good prep, but I think the advantage is he comes across like a kind of an average person more certainly than most politicians. So we'll just have to see.
Wow, that surprises me, because he's got these snappy retorts, and these he's credited with the whole weird attack on Republicans, which I know it's controversial, but to me it appears very effective. It's like taking us out of the, apocalyptic conversation and more into like a high school kind of, okay, that's just weird. Why do you want to do that? And so it seems to me someone that can turn a phrase like that. Oh, Lord. Watching my clock here. Not watching my clock. We'll continue the conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Maryland, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are making their first trip together since Biden dropped out of the presidential race last month. The White House says the two will appear together in Prince George's County, Maryland. Senior officials from the U.S. and the Middle East are hoping for a breakthrough today in the Gaza ceasefire negotiations. The summit in Qatar will include Israeli officials who have said the meeting is the last chance to get a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. New York City Mayor Eric Adams plans on highlighting the migrant crisis when he heads to Chicago, Illinois next week for the Democratic National Convention. The African-American mayor says he'll be meeting with national Democratic leaders to talk about the issue, and he'll push for speeding up work authorization for migrants. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Back to school is a breeze at your local Amazon Fresh grocery store. Save up to 50% with select Prime member deals this school year. Save big on back to school at your local Amazon Fresh grocery store. Find a store near you.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers' new home, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood, opens today. Capacity 18,000. First event in the $2 billion arena is tonight's Bruno Mars concert. First home regular season game for the Clippers is November 22nd against Sacramento. The NBA All-Star Game is coming to the Intuit Dome in 2026. The WNBA is back in action tonight after a month-long break for the Summer Olympics. The LA Sparks are at home tonight against the New York Liberty, the best team in the WNBA. The Liberty are 21-4. The Sparks are 6-18. They are 4 games behind the Chicago Sky for the 8th and final playoff spot. 6 p.m. tip-off tonight for the Sparks in New York at Crypto.com Arena. Live coverage on ESPN. The Dodgers and Angels lost last night. Milwaukee snapped the Dodgers' 5-game winning streak. The Dodgers committed 3 errors and left 8 men on base. The Angels were swept at home by Toronto. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys. Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and Sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys?
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse Limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Hey, LA, it's time to step up and be a climate change hero. Go Metro and help us shape a better future for all Angelinos. From enhancing our diverse communities to preserving our planet, Metro is dedicated to making a positive impact with every ride. Start your journey at metro.net. History is being made. LA Civil Rights and the LA City Reparations Advisory Commission is about to unveil a groundbreaking reparations report. Come learn more about the impact of the Black experience in Los Angeles. Join us on Tuesday, August 27th, 5 p.m. at CSUN's Student Union for the official release and panel discussion. For more information, call 213-978-1845 or visit laisforeveryone.com. Again, laisforeveryone.com. Be part of this monumental moment.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Just hearing that spot, I want to let you guys know I somehow got convinced. I will be there. I shouldn't say somehow. I will be there at Cal State Northridge on the 27th. Hopefully you'll join me for the unveiling of the Reparations Task Force of Los Angeles findings. I will be emceeing that event. Continuing the conversation with journalist and editor-in-chief J. Patrick Coolican, who's been covering Governor Walz for years, and just said you've seen him have some moments that weren't the most amazing as a debater. I was saying I was surprised because he seems really good at, positioning statements and snappy retorts.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a Midwestern thing where they're not, people are not confrontational.
Oh,
here. They're not used to
I
that.
see. Yeah.
I myself am not from here. I'm from the East Coast, where we basically just tell people what's what.
Where to stuff it. Yeah, I know. My mom's from there. J.D. Vance, as you mentioned, he's a, Yale scholar. And a lawyer, but he seems to have trouble expressing himself, or maybe it's just that the things he says are really bad and there's no good way to say it. But he seems like he's putting his foot in his mouth quite a bit too. So although I would be concerned about, if I was Governor Walz, I'd be concerned about taking on a Yale scholar. I'd also be thinking about, childless cat ladies, and what was the latest one I heard that he says that postmenopausal women's sole reason for existence is to take care of his kids. I mean, those kinds of statements are really problematic in a debate, I would think.
Yeah, somebody else said J.D. Vance's way of asking you if you want to go for a burger is, should we go kill some cows and eat their carcass? Yeah, I mean, Vance's problem, I think, is going to be some of the extremism of his statements. I mean, he's on record wanting a national abortion ban, and certainly Walz is going to try to light him up on that. And I think there's just a sense that J.D. Vance has this kind of overweening interest in other people's families.
Yeah.
And other people's family structures. And, that's been a key part of the Walz counterattack is like, it's just none of your business, and just government can focus on keeping people safe and trying to help us get to some prosperity and let families determine how they're going to live their lives.
Everyone, when Walz was first selected, and this is classic LA, everyone was going, he's so old. And the LA Times even said Minnesota 60 apparently is an LA 80. Is that fair?
Because he hasn't had any work done.
Okay. So basically he'd look like a California 60 if he just got some Botox and some fillers. What do you see as his weaknesses? You talked about the tendency to misspeak, or not even misspeak, but put things in a sloppy way. He's been attacked for that around his military service. And you just said he's all admitted to the Harris campaign that he's not the greatest debater. You talked about public safety being an area of vulnerability just because of, both the emergency phase of the pandemic and also the George Floyd protests in the state that he was governor of. But how do you see, as a candidate, as a politician, what do you see as his weak places?
Well, he's got there's a pretty extensive opposition book on him, which they are dribbling out. The latest one today is that he got a DUI in the 90s. He was speeding too. He was on 96, excuse me, and a 65 or something like that. And that's not new. I mean, we knew that. When he ran for Congress in 2006, his campaign, not him, but he's ultimately responsible, kind of put out this story that he wasn't drinking and that it was all a misunderstanding. So there's just kind of a lot of stuff like this. I mean, he spoke next to it favorably with a guy. This has also come out this week, who's clearly an anti-Semite. They're reaching into this very activist, robust 2023 legislative session when the Democrats had full control of government, kind of did this kind of progressive wish list. So they're kind of digging into that. So the guy's got a long record, both personally and politically, and they're it's all going to come out. Most of it has already been reported here, and it did not really take hold. But there is an accumulation of that. As for now, it doesn't seem to have broken through to the average person who sees somebody who is, like I said before, he's the former teacher and coach who got into politics and has identified with working class people.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about this moment in time, but I don't know if you agree with this, J. Patrick Coolican, but I feel like a lot of the things that might have worked in the past are backfiring right now on Republicans, i.e. let's attack the vice president because of her dating history, and young women are going, or even, older women are going, oh boy, we all don't want to be judged by our exes. They talk about childless cat ladies, and we all are like, oh, we all don't want to be measured by our spouses and having our pets and whether or not we have kids. It seems like, and I feel like, oh, we're going to attack him for something that happened in the 90s. It's like, okay, well, we're not going back. I don't know. I feel like there's almost this, it's part of the reason that media keeps reporting that the Trump campaign is having trouble finding its footing against Walz Harris, is because it seems like a lot of the things that they try to use end up making people say, oh, well, I once had a DUI. I mean, not that anybody wants a DUI, but okay, none of us are perfect. You're going to attack his military service, but he served 24 years. I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to, when my parents asked me, well, what's going to come out, or, what are they going to find? I said, yeah, there's a DUI from the 90s. Yeah, I said he has a DUI from the 90s, and my father's response was, well, who hasn't?
Right.
So yeah, it's a different kind of campaign also because it's so compacted. They don't have time to really, the usual campaign is 18 months or as long as 2 years, where you see these ideas or this reporting that'll come up in the right-wing media and then it gravitates over to the mainstream, and it really allows some of the negative views to be cemented, and I don't think, they, in some ways, they just don't have time for that. And then, also there's lower information voters, they tend to like novelty. And so, I think even though the vice president, she's the vice president, she's, presumably pretty well known, there's something just new and fresh about her, and the same with Walz. And I think that was true in 2016 with Trump. I was like, well, this is new. What the heck? Let's go with this. As depressing as it is, sometimes those low information voters in key states are often what determine who's going to be the president.
Yeah. Well, I asked you about his weak points. When we come forward, I want to hear what you think are his strong points. We said coach and teacher, and we've heard repeatedly those were strong points in him being selected by the Harris team, along with, as you pointed out, his not overly ambitious kind of outlook, that he understands what it is to be on a team. But politically, I'm interested in your thoughts on what Governor Walz's strong points are. We'll look at that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, plus free home delivery on select smart beds when you add any base. Limited time. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
This is the story of the one. As a facility technician installing a new welding station, he knows getting the ventilation right is critical for safety. That's why when questions arise, there's Grainger. Grainger offers detailed technical product information online at his fingertips, so it's easy to find what he needs. Because when it comes to safety, having answers means he and his people can breathe a little easier. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Workers in California cut and polish man-made stone for countertops, showers, and more. Without proper protections, workers breathe in harmful dust from the artificial stone material, which puts them at risk of developing silicosis. California employers are required to protect their employees from harmful silica dust by providing proper equipment and training. Stop dusty and deadly practices. Learn more at worksafewithsilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Well, so much to squeeze in. Why does this always happen? I think of more and more questions as the conversations go along. J. Patrick Coolican is my guest, and he is with the Minnesota Reformer, actually editor-in-chief of that nonprofit organization. As we see this sort of breaking news about a nonprofit, I guess, news organization in the UK creating a secret recording about Project 2025, where they're posing as a right-wing organization that's doing something similar to what Project 2025 is claiming to do, which is creating a blueprint for a second Trump term. This video has been released, this secretly recorded video. Some mainstream news probably won't carry it because it was sort of secretly recorded, but it seems to belie what President Trump has said, that he has nothing to do with Project 2025. And I had to at least mention it, since this is going to be probably fodder for the election news cycle, not just now, but throughout the next week, I would say, at least, unless something else that's really crazy happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think, some polling, that I've seen here locally, a surprising number of people have heard of this Project 2025 and really don't like it. So the Democrats seem to be breaking through on that. The idea that Trump isn't aware of it is, I mean, much like a lot of stuff that he says, it's just nonsense. I mean, the people who worked in his administration and on his campaign are intimately involved in that project. As Walz has a pretty good line about this, in which he says, as a coach, I know they don't come up with a game plan unless you plan to use it.
That is a good line. So they'll debate on the 1st, and Vance has offered a second debate earlier on the 18th. This is, I guess, part of the Trump playbook. They're trying to offer, you can come with me on Fox News first, and then I'll drop out of the second one. It's like, I'm not sure what that strategy is about. Thoughts?
Well, I think that Vance did 3 interviews, cable interviews last weekend. I think there's a sense that he kind of righted his own ship a little bit and did pretty well in those, and so they feel like they like the contrast between Vance and Walz in a debate format. And so they probably want more of these.
Yeah.
I think in the end, people are going to vote for president, not for vice president. But the choice does matter.
It does.
It kind of it extends the brand, and I think insofar as Walz, people have a positive impression of him so far. I think that was a good choice.
What are his strengths politically?
He loves people, and so it makes it very easy for him to do retail politics. I think we've seen plenty of politicians who are real awkward around people. They're introverts, or they're just not used.
Ron
they're
DeSantis
not used to that
comes
setting.
to mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Vance probably will be in that category too. He's just a guy. Yeah, I mean, the first year when he was governor. The state fair here is a big event and draws 100,000 people a day. Wow. And I think his first year he went every single day, which is like 10 days. And he just loves that kind of stuff. He loves meeting people, and I think that will always serve you well in politics if you can do that. And then does it come across on TV? Does that personality? And as you mentioned, I mean, he had like that little audition for vice president in a way when he did all those cable TV news hits in the 2 weeks before the selection, and he did seem to do pretty well. I mean, those were sort of softballs and gimmies, and so it's going to be more confrontational from here on out. He's going to have to be ready for that.
Yeah. I know you say Vance righted the ship. Yeah, he gave good answers. I watched the CNN one, but he was so smug and unlikable. It was like, he didn't right the ship for me. As a woman, it's like, oh, this is the mansplain guy. I recognize that smug demeanor.
Well, yeah, this is the issue is like once you become an unpopular person,
right?
It becomes very hard to get out of that hole. I mean, this is what happens in debates. It's the winner of the debate is not the person who is the best debater. It's often the person who is already, like everybody said that, like the pundits said, for instance, Obama like maybe lost debates, but then like the polling showed that he won them because like he was the more popular person.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting point. It's what impression do you leave with? I should have brought this up earlier because we're close to the end of the show. But guns is an interesting area for Walz. I mean, he's a hunter, but he's for sensible gun control. And for those of us, and there are a lot of us, black people who actually want gun control, but we also want to be able to have our weapons in the spirit of Ida B. Wells. I think that's actually going to be a bigger plus in black and brown communities than Democrats realize. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, his record on guns is interesting. I mean, he was a marksman in the National Guard. He's a big pheasant hunter. I actually went shooting with him in 2018.
Wow.
And I'm a terrible shot. He was pretty good. But it's also worth noting. So he was actually an ally of the NRA.
Yeah,
he was one of their best Democrats. Then in 2018, after the massacre at the high school in Florida, he changed his view on it, and now he's gets his F from the NRA, and he signed 3 gun control bills, a red flag law. He increased the penalty for straw purchases, and then they also required background checks for private gun sales. So they've done quite a bit on guns in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and by the way, I agree with Tavis Smiley said yesterday that the election cycle is altogether too long. When are they governing? It's like they're always campaigning. I wish we could have it more compact like it is, maybe a little longer than this, but like it is more close to what it is right now. Do you see enthusiasm and energy for, as you point out, low information voters or low enthusiasm voters waning between now and November 5th? Or do you think that Walz and Harris will be able to maintain?
No, I think I think they have all this money flowing in and volunteers. I think that they'll it's only going to amp up from here as we get closer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict because you never know, and especially we've learned that this election cycle. What? Assassination attempt? What? Biden's not running? What? Kamala Harris has consolidated the Democratic delegates. Wow, a lot happening in a short time. I really thank you for spending the hour with me, J. Patrick Coolican. Tell us how to reach you, how to keep track of what you're writing, and anything else you want to leave us with.
Yeah, MinnesotaReformer.com. I know there must be plenty of Minnesotans out there in Southern California. So look us up. And, free email newsletter comes 6 days a week. And I'm at Patrick@MinnesotaReformer.com if anybody wants to reach out. And, we're focused on stories for middle-class, working-class people here.
Well, it's certainly appreciated, and it's one of the things I'm enjoying about this whole cycle is that we're actually talking about class for a change, not just who's black and who's not, but who represents the working class and the middle class, and it doesn't always have to be one party. Appreciate the conversation.
It's been fun. Thanks.
Yes, it has, and look. Connect with me on social media. I'm at DiPrima Radio, DiPrima, and then radio. I'm on X, aka Twitter, Instagram, sometimes Facebook, always Instagram, and now TikTok. Yay, Miles. Also, of course, we'd love it if you would download our app and visit KBLA 1580 on every platform. You make us stronger, and we're here to serve you. Tavis Smiley's up next. He's got an incredible show on deck, as always. And I'm going to leave you with the Tim Walz quote. This one, he says, "I feel like I've got feet firmly in different camps between the right of gun ownership and public safety." I'm Dominique DiPrima. History is now and we are making it together. Don't forget Malik Shabazz tomorrow for Freedman Friday. And until then, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Mo. Making their first trip together since Biden dropped out of the presidential race last month. The White House says the two will appear together.